Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to Season 2 of Boobies and Noobies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today I'm joined by singer, songwriter, and biggest Beatles fan of all time, Jason Berk. Welcome to the show, Jason.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad to have you.
I am so excited. When I walked in, I told you I'm chomping at the bit to discuss whatever this is that you made me read.
Yeah, these were Jason's first words upon walking in. I am chomping at the bit. I thought he was like pissed off about something. He's like, no, I am ready. I love it. You and I go way back. We go back to, what, high school? Middle school?
It would have been 2006, whenever we did Annie, because you were Miss Hannigan.
Annie the Musical Junior.
I was FDR. So.
No, and then wasn't it before that was Wizard of Oz?
Oh, Wizard of Oz.
God.
2005?
The highlights of our careers.
Oh, wow. So, 13 years.
That's insane.
Wow. I was telling a customer at work something about my life that happened in high school, and I was like, and that was only 11 years ago.
I know. My 10-year high school reunion is this coming year. I mean, I don't think we're actually having a reunion, but I was just kind of like...
In the Facebook age, you don't really need one.
Yeah.
You see all the people you want to see.
Exactly.
And then you can just laugh at everybody else from over the internet.
Yeah, you can spy on everyone and then just keep in contact with the ones you actually like.
And then just, silently judge them from the comfort of your own home.
And I do. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. And you just got back to town because you were in the Bay Area?
Yes, I was playing a show at the International Pop Overthrow Festival, which is this touring series that does between 3 nights and 2 weeks in assorted cities around the world.
Oh, wow.
So I've done LA and I've done San Francisco. A couple years ago I did the Seattle one. Hopefully Liverpool 2019, we'll see. That
would be awesome. Yeah. So is it a different city every year?
No, so it's all of the cities every year. So I did the LA version at the end of July, and then just a couple nights ago did the SF version, and I don't know where he's headed next, but it's basically a touring festival that takes mostly local, rock bands, and the genre would be power pop, technically.
Is that what your genre is? Power pop?
It's what I've been boxed into. Power
pop
being just really melodic rock and roll.
Okay.
I'll take that.
I like that.
Yeah, for people that like The Who and some Tom Petty, stuff like that.
Love me some Tom.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Oh, God, what a good one. I'm so glad I got to see him in concert.
Same.
So good. Today, as Jason is chomping at the bit to get started, we will be discussing the book Whisky Sharp, Unraveled by Dane. This book was published January 2018 and is available on Amazon for $5.99, Kindle edition, which is definitely on the pricier side of Kindle novels as far as I'm concerned. I'm more of a 99-cent, $1.99 kind of gal.
This was an investment.
Yeah, this was an investment, and we'll talk about if we got our money's worth.
There are 2 other books in this series.
This is the first book in the Whisky Sharp series, and it came out in January, and there have been 2 other books since then, and the most recent one was in June.
Okay, yeah, because she for sure thanks her editor in the acknowledgments, and knowing that she has put out 3 books this year.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how many books she's put out this year. 3 Whisky Sharp books this year. Kudos to that editor.
Yeah.
For I don't know how many drafts.
I know.
Have been submitted, though maybe the editor just read it and was like, perfect, put it out.
Good to go.
This is easily worth $6.
Yeah, that's a big price. I don't know how the world of romance novel publishing works, but I will say that I have seen multiple authors where they will have books on consecutive months. This one comes out January 14th, the next one comes out February 14th, the next one comes out March 14th. And I'm thinking maybe they just submit them all at once or something.
It could be when Green Day put out those 3 albums a couple months apart that I'm guessing were all recorded at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
And it does seem that Dane if that is her real name, is a real person.
Yeah.
Is not like a pseudonym for a collective of erotica writers.
I don't think so. Because I know that is the case for some people, but I'm pretty sure it's one lovely individual Lauren Dane.
The author photo, puts her, far from old.
Yeah. Oh, no, she's really pretty.
Suspiciously like the main character.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Hair.
I have to say, before we talk about like the plot of the book, I love the cover art for the book. Like, it's one of my favorite ones I've seen. The models are really like hip looking, and the girl's got like short colored hair. Like, they're very reflective of the characters.
I made a note in my my Marvelous Mrs. Maisel pink notebook that was handed out to me on the Santa Monica Promenade, that in the prologue, or I guess the first chapter, the description of her is with like very short blonde hair, and then I looked back at the cover and I was like, well, this doesn't match at all.
Because she has red hair.
Yeah, it's like
cover,
red
right?
hair that's... it looks like it's pulled into a ponytail. I can tell if it's short and she's got long bangs.
I think she does color it during the book, though.
Yeah, so like by chapter 2, it's red again.
Yeah.
But at the end of the first chapter, I was like, so do they just pick a stock photo?
Yeah. Yeah, no, they do. They look really cool, though, on the cover. And it's... Yeah, I have to say, like, the setting and the character setup I really did appreciate about this book, but we'll get into that in a second. Okay, before we talk about the book, let us talk about romance. So before having read this Whisky Sharp Unraveled by Lauren Dane, had you read a romance novel before?
No, I was requested in high school when we were doing a musical, as we were all putting on our stage makeup and getting in a costume. The gals in the dressing room next door said, "Hey, Jason, come here." I said, "What?" He said, "Will you read us the story in the back of this month's Cosmo while we put on our makeup?"
Oh my God!
And I said, "Yes."
Yes, I will.
And it being 1 or 2 pages was fun and goofy and silly.
And I'm sure you read it in a very, like, sensual tone.
Oh, yeah, he kissed her deeply, passionately. In, the best... I guess my voice was about this deep by the time I was 17.
Yeah!
So what wasn't before my voice had changed?
Oh, my God.
Was she grabbed his throbbing? Yeah, like, it's... And other than that, I think the only other thing would be, like... Remember when there would be weirdly, like, half ghost story, half erotic MySpace bulletins?
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah. No, I do. I do remember. MySpace. God.
The closest I had come to, like, formal erotica.
Yeah. What a simpler time.
A better time for America.
I feel like maybe, I know it's not the same, but like for the same kind of content, Tumblr's like the new MySpace.
Tumblr definitely. It's like they took the MySpace bulletin concept and ran with it.
I didn't even realize that people like look at porn that way. Like somebody told me recently, they're like, "Oh yeah, like when I look at porn, I look on Tumblr." I'm like, Tumblr, like the blog site? And
there's 2 sides. There's the people that just like reblog porn gifs or gifs if you're wrong.
Yeah. Jiffy peanut butter.
That's right. Things like that. And then there are the people that use it because they don't have content restrictions the way like Instagram does or Facebook does, where they'll post their own nudes for, self-expression or to promote their own cam site or something like that. Yeah. So it is, and has been for a few years, part of, the greater internet porn ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely not what I thought of when I thought of Tumblr, especially since, like, my mom wanted to, like, show her students how to blog, and I was like, "Oh, you should use Tumblr." Like,
I
maybe
for
not.
Sure, like, because I got on Tumblr in 2009. I heard of it through, I think through my ex. It had got me on it. And though I already knew going in that there could be a nefarious side, just because it was small enough at the time that they had different themed days that just seemed to go across the whole platform.
Oh, okay.
One of which was Topless Tuesday.
Oh, well, sure, of course.
Like, regardless of whether or not it was a porn blog, there was like a sizable group of people that, they'd put the tag Topless Tuesday, and it wasn't like a big sexual thing. It's like, all right, there's Muppet Monday, where everybody post a picture of Kermit the Frog or your favorite song from a Muppet movie. And then on Tuesday, take a topless picture. And then Wednesday, I don't know, a picture of yourself.
Wine.
Yeah, drinking wine or whiskey. It was just like a thing. It wasn't like,
Where have I been?
Like
I've been missing this.
Maybe the internet equivalent of High School Truth or Dare? Like, yeah. Really nothing dirtier than that.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to do some Tumblr research, but okay, so besides MySpace erotica and the stories in the back of Cosmo, romance wasn't on your radar.
Not even a little bit.
Did you ever think about it? Like, did you ever pick up a romance novel like at Barnes & Noble or something?
I've thumbed through the 50 Shades books.
Yeah, I feel like everybody did at some point.
Just because I'm like, what's the fuss about? And
right.
somebody was like, oh, it's Twilight erotica with the names changed. And
yep.
I was like, well, I should definitely flip through this because this sounds terrible.
Yep.
And I was right.
Yep.
But yeah, I've probably like, oh, look at this goofy, some like early 90s, just an illustration of like a shirtless Fabio lookalike
yep.
riding a steed. More in the sort of like historical erotic fiction,
mm-hmm.
or if not even historical, just different time period.
Yeah, not modern day.
Yeah, like historical makes it seem like, oh, like Christopher Columbus is involved or Alexander Hamilton.
But I would read that.
I want to know a lot more about what happened with Hamilton and Mariah Reynolds.
Yes! Oh my god, and I've been
Can somebody write it? I am putting out into the world now, somebody needs to write the Hamilton Reynolds
fan fiction romance.
Give me that. Though, you know where you can probably find that? Tumblr.
Yeah, Tumblr or Reddit.
Ooh, yeah.
It's there. It's gotta be. Like, I've been listening to a lot of Hamilton lately, too, so...
Rule 54. If you can imagine it, porn of it exists.
It's a good rule to live by. Hamilton. The other one is when I tell people, like, different subgenres, I'll be like, yeah, there's, like, historical romance, there's paranormal romance, and they're like, whoa, like... They're like fucking ghosts and shit. And I'm like, I don't think I have seen fucking ghosts, but now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like they must be out there. So
I was thinking like the moon turns full and his animalistic instincts take over.
Yeah, it's definitely more like werewolves, vampires, shifters, like anything you saw on True Blood, there's like a romance for it.
I did know hockey romance exists
as
a very specific subgenre because
yes.
Paul Scheer, comedian, podcaster, made a joke about it on Instagram.
Oh, really?
And got a lot of backlash from people being like, don't you talk shit on hockey romance.
Oh my god,
and
how funny.
He was recommended a couple titles and he read it and like really enjoyed it and he put out like guys, yeah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. This was a lot of fun. I mean, kudos to the people that write and the people that read hockey romance.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is like I wouldn't even there's a lot of hockey romance, there's a lot of like motorcycle club romance, there's like pirate romance, but it's hard to be like all hockey romance is wonderful. It depends on the author, it depends on the book, but we did review a hockey romance for this podcast, and I have to say, I think it was my favorite book we've read so far.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I actually liked it so much I went and read the rest of the series. Yeah, food for thought. No romance, hadn't thought about it, thumbed through a little bit of 50 Shades, who hasn't, right?
I felt like I probably got the gist of what romance novels were.
Got it. That you felt like you didn't need to read it.
Yeah, it was, and I was a big reader as a kid, and I think Harry Potter kind of ruined fiction for me because I was so heavily invested that when it was over,
yeah,
I was like, I can't put myself in imaginary worlds for a long time. The one exception being John Green novels.
Oh, okay.
So I think, other than John Green, Harry Potter is sort of where fiction cut off for me, and everything else has been like biographies, autobiographies, comedic works, collections of essays, B.J. Novak's book.
Just not a lot of fiction then.
Not in the last. When was Deathly Hallows? Last 10 years, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. You're not the first person I've talked to where I feel like a lot of people have said they like to read about more, real life stuff, like people that they really enjoy watching in movies or TV or, political figures. Like they like hearing what they have to say and they find it more like applicable to their lives.
Right.
So I get that. I like that too. I mean, I like a little bit of everything, but it is funny to be like, oh yeah, what do you read, Kelly? Oh, well, I really love romance. I love thriller, mystery, murder books. And, I like a good autobiography. Like, mix it up. Okay, well, I think without further ado, we should jump into Whisky Sharp Unraveled.
Let's get into it.
Oh boy. Okay, so here is the Amazon synopsis of the book, so everyone listening at home can play along. And it starts with one of these obnoxious, like, italicized statements. The sharpest ache comes from wanting what you think you can't have. And then we jump into the plot. Maybe Dolan has lived independent, free-spirited, and unattached since leaving home at 16. Whisky Sharp, Seattle's sexy, vintage-style barbershop and whiskey bar, gave her a job and a reason to put down roots. Cutting hair by day, losing herself drumming in a punk rock band by night, she's got it good. But a longtime crush that turns into a hot, edgy night with brooding and bearded Alexsei Petrov makes it a hell of a lot better. Maybe's blunt attitude and carnal smile hooked Alexsei from the start. Protecting people is part of his nature, and Maybe is meant to be his, even if she doesn't know it yet. He can't help himself from wanting to protect and care for her. But Maybe's fiery, independent spirit means pushing back when Alexsei goes too far. Still, he's not afraid to do a little pushing of his own to get what he wants. Her in his life and his bed for good. Maybe's more intoxicating than all of the liquor on his shelf. And he's not afraid to he's not afraid to ride the blade's edge to bind her to him. Ooh, that's a weird last sentence.
That really, based on, you told me that this was the book that I was assigned, and I saw that, and my first thought was like, all right, so he's into, like, tying her up, and, like, maybe
some Christian Grey shit.
And, like, maybe some knife play.
Yeah.
Something like that. And, like, he's gonna, like, really cross some boundaries.
It's some interesting word choice. Like, he's not afraid to do a little pushing of his own.
I'm like, this guy's
ride
bad
the
news.
Blade's edge, bind her to him. You're right. It is
dangerous.
Kinky.
I was intrigued.
Yeah. Okay, so you were intrigued.
Was intrigued.
And then you read it, and initial thoughts? Overall impressions?
Nothing happens in this book. I'm just going to go ahead and say, there was a point, I took a note where at this point I'm like 2/3 of the way through the book. Mm-hmm. And I wrote, plot so far, they meet. 2 years later, they start fucking. Her ex is jealous. Her parents suck.
Yeah.
And that's
it.
The entirety of it.
Yeah. Wait, who's her ex? I'm trying to remember an ex.
No, his ex.
Oh, his ex.
Rada.
Oh, yeah, that's right. How useless. Yeah, okay, my initial thoughts, I don't have a negative impression of the book overall. I did enjoy the first half. I feel like for the most part, the second half for me, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I didn't need it. Like, I felt like it was like a different book. It stopped being a romance novel.
There are two different books going on in this book.
Yes.
And there are certain devices that are used that then just kind of disappear for a while. There's every so often something will happen from her perspective. And then it jumps back just a little bit to get his point of view on it. And it's not quite a like a vantage point, or what's the Kurosawa film?
Oh shoot, I know exactly what you're talking about too. I'm thinking of the play, the one where it's like the woman was raped in Japan.
It is.
We did a play.
Rashomon.
Yeah, we did that play at college.
So I'm thinking like there's some Rashomon stuff going on, maybe.
Where you get like each point of view over the same course.
This is how she's seeing this. Oh, this is how he's seeing it. All right, so maybe there's going to be miscommunication because she thought she was being flirty and he thought she was being aggressive or something like that. And that just kind of goes in and out as it pleases.
Yeah.
No innuendo implied.
Well, it's gonna happen.
Like that just keeps happening.
And I don't mind the dual perspective. Like, that's pretty common in a lot of romance.
That they drop that quickly.
Yeah.
But then there's the scene when they're first hooking up, which... now, I don't know what the page count is in paperback, but on the iPad in landscape mode was about a little over 300 pages.
which I guess...
The book as a whole? Like the entire book?
Yeah, well, the entire book on its own is like 331 pages, including the acknowledgments and everything. But I guess looking at it as if it's a small paperback, it took them to about page 77 to finally hook up.
Yeah.
And even between like some like erotic writing and dirty writing that keeps switching also between like kind of poetic and dirty, being like, oh, she undressed him with her eyes to look towards what was growing in his pants, to like, she wanted to fuck him.
Yeah.
She wanted to fuck him hard. She wanted his dick in her pussy. And it's like, whoa, okay, like that escalated quickly. But then almost alternating paragraphs with them talking about like their family hardships.
Yeah.
It was a roller coaster.
It was interesting, and like for me, I mean, you learn at the beginning, she gets hired at Whisky Sharp, which I have to say, I do love the setting of a barbershop bar. I thought that was really cool.
I appreciated that. I did write in my notes, the entire description could have been reduced to, imagine a Brooklyn hipster barbershop, but it's in Seattle, and I would have been like, cool, I can picture it exactly.
Yeah, like it's definitely, you're right though, it does get really flowery language, like, and then when they get to the fucking, it actually gets pretty like...
They keep calling it her pink parts. I've never heard that in my life. I wrote it down.
Oh God. See, now I want to go read another Lauren Dane novel and see, like, if that's the term she uses
her pink
for
parts
vagina.
Doing the forbidden dance. And then 2 lines later I wrote, more dance. Pink parts.
Okay, so for me, I was a little forgiving because Alexsei, our male lead, is from Russia. So there's some moments where when it's from his perspective or he's saying something, it doesn't come out as like the clearest English language.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I understand that. But then for her, for maybe, not as in maybe perhaps, as in that is the character's name, maybe, I feel like she had like some weird speech patterns too, where I almost kept thinking she was foreign.
I underlined an entire passage pretty much when she, like in the first 3 pages of, after they've described the place way more than they need to, she's basically saying she's getting a job there whether he likes it or not.
Right.
She says, see, I know you're probably thinking, hey, who is this woman? I haven't even advertised for that opening. And you'd be right because you don't know me. But I know Mrs. Orlova, and while she was busily shoving extra loaves of bread into my order, she told me to present myself to you and for you to hire me. You've met her, so you know how she is. Frankly, I'm really afraid of her, but she's the main supplier of my carbs, so I tend to just follow her orders. It was like, what?
See, and I was okay with that because I was okay with that to a certain extent because I really do like her character at the start, that he's like very reserved and quiet and just like, who the hell is this like little girl coming in? Because she's young, coming in and yelling at me.
When it starts, she's 25.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, because they mentioned towards the end, because the first chapter takes place 2 years ago, and they mentioned at some point that she's 27.
Oh, okay. See, and I don't know why I was picturing her as so much younger, like, because she's talking about how she left home at 16 and everything, and so I think I was picturing her as, like, 22, but no, I kind of liked that she was, like, this fiery character of, like, I talk too much, and she even says when she introduces herself, she's like, I know you're going to think it's because I'm nervous, but I'll let you know right now that I talk like this all the time, so I'm super chatty.
As for why I talk so much, well, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not a nervous habit or anything like that, so it won't go away once I get used to it. This is pretty much how I roll all the time. My sister likes to tell people I talk a lot because I have a lot to say. I think that's the same as when a teacher tells you your kid is spirited instead of wild. I was a spirited kid, as you probably have a really hard time believing. It kept towing the line between, like, really charming and, like, John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Or, like, potentially on, like, the spectrum. Like, I was, like, thinking maybe she was on the spectrum at first, like...
There are parts where she talks a lot, and I'm like, because she's comfortable and because we know these characters, I can get it. I will do that. You know, I just hung out with a friend for the first time in a while, and I know that I was doing, like, 75% of the talking. But that's not how I am with just strangers, especially when I'm petitioning for a job.
Right. Like, it would have made more sense for it to have been I'm nervous and that's why I'm talking this much.
Like, I thought I would have liked it more if when she came in,
she played it as cool as he does to be more intriguing, and then once he hires her, she's like, anyway, I talk all the time, and then he's like, oh no, I've made a mistake, but I can't go back now.
Yeah,
and then,
that would
then
be
learn
cute
to love
too.
It. Yeah,
that would make sense too. It's
those some of my studio notes.
Yeah, and you know what, here's my problem is I just feel like the first half of the book, you know, he hires her, and then we jump to 2 years later, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's not my favorite start to like
we could have just
meet people and just jump
that whole first chapter into like a couple paragraphs and just started it present day,
and like when he met me 2 years ago, like, you know,
exactly.
It's like I don't think we needed that, but you know, the first half is like getting to know them, and you know, they clearly have had 2 years of like both of them being attracted to each other, her not making a move because he was engaged to someone else. He's like been kind of like fucking his way around town since he broke up, and now he's finally like, oh, maybe this is the time. maybe. But and then you get the weird story with her sister, which I'm not even talking about the parents yet, like, because we'll get to that in a hot second.
They say like, ever since the kidnapping, and then don't address that for like another 6 chapters.
I marked that in the book. I was like, kidnapping? Wait, what are we talking about? Because in the beginning, she is like so adamant about getting this job because she wants the health insurance for her sister who's supposedly been in a work accident. And I'm like, okay. And then they mention a kidnapping like a chapter later. You're like, okay, who was kidnapped? What are we talking about?
Yeah, the way they describe her parents' reactions and things without still making it clear makes me like, was she kidnapped? Did she kidnap somebody?
Yeah. Who was kidnapped? Are they okay? Like, what's going on? And so you find out that her sister basically worked for like the criminal minds people. Like, it even says she was behavioral analysis unit, and I was like, oh shit,
she was the person in the FBI that goes after serial killers.
Yeah.
And one of them got her.
Kidnapped
which
her.
is a much more interesting story.
Oh yeah. I would have read that book. Like, I would have read that book for sure. But it almost made me wonder too, like if that happened like during this book, that would have like told me, oh, the next book in this series is gonna be about the sister being kidnapped and shit. Like
the amount of stuff that gets brought up in this book.
Yeah.
Made me think, because it gets to a point where the parents are just awful, and we spend so much time learning about their family background and his
still
family
not
background.
solved.
And at the end, it's like, okay, well, maybe the parents are going to sue maybe for conservatorship over her sister's life. And I'm like, okay, so when I first started reading, I got to a point where I was like, I have to, because as I mentioned earlier off mic, I forgot what day we were taping this, and realized that it was yesterday. So started reading this about 5:30 yesterday evening. Got to a point where it's like, I can probably just skim some of the family stuff. Yeah, it's just, you know, a nice Russian family on his side, and then her family's arguing, and I'm like, well, let me get back to the steamy stuff. But then at a point about halfway through, it switches, and I became so much more involved in the family drama. And then they'd start fucking again, and I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, you know, they both came. Amazing. Like, let's get back to this. And the book ends, and I'm like, I kind of want to find out what happens. Yeah. Good thing there are 2 more books, and the other 2 books
aren't about them.
I mean, the next one's about her sister, but I don't know if it takes place immediately after this, or if it's a companion piece that takes place during the same time. And then the third one is just about their friend that gets casually mentioned a few times.
So, okay. Because when I was reading it, the first half is like them falling in love. Great, we're a couple. And it happens quick. I mean, they like fuck and they're together. Like, the end.
Oh, that was a problem I had, because they spent 15 pages between the 2 of them talking to their family members and being like, well, I really like her, but she's my employee. I don't know if I
Is that your Alexsei?
That's my Alexsei. I don't know if I can fuck my employee. And his cousin's like, no, bro, it's okay. She's like your work wife. And then she's at home with her sister being like, oh, God, he's so hot. Her sister says, when are you going to show him your boobies?
Oh, I marked that page, too, because I thought that was... When are you going to let him see your boobs already? I feel like you two have been giving one another googly eyes for years now.
I noted that. I said this was somehow written by a woman.
Yeah.
Which was very hard to believe from that. So they spend 15 pages of them, like, having anxiety attacks about this. And then she asks him out so easily, and then they're just together and, like, perfect and very easily in love with, no real conflict or hurdles to get over.
And so that's my biggest problem, not just with this book, but I've found this in lots of romances, is either there's so much drama, like there's just too much plot happening, which is funny because I feel like this also has that problem, but that it also does, it's not a romance. Like after they get together, they're just together. Like there's no conflicts between them.
Fulfillment porn.
Yeah, it's just all of their conflicts are external. Like, yeah, he's got like a little bit with like his ex-fiance, but not really. Like she's not really trying to necessarily like get him back. It's more like she just wants to stay in the picture because she's known this family forever.
And I kept thinking, like, all right, so we've introduced this jealous ex-fiance.
Right.
Is she I'm thinking, even the cliches, she's going to put him in a position where even though he didn't do anything...
There's going to be a misunderstanding.
Maybe he's going to walk in on what looks like them kissing. I thought that, or based on the, like, he's going to ride the blade's edge. I'm like, oh, like, he's going to reveal this dark side. Or the fact that his mother's husband is in the Russian mob.
Oh,
I was like, if there's a gun introduced in the first act, it has to go off in the third.
Thanks, Chekhov.
And nope.
No.
Just like, yeah, we left Russia so I didn't have to be in the mob. And then that's never addressed. And her mother loves, or his mother loves just the idea of her.
Yeah.
Like, nothing is really standing in their way.
Because I thought his mother was totally going to be a problem because when we first meet her, there's like this chaotic family dinner. She's visiting from Russia for the first time in like 4 years. And she leaves like still so upset. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be an issue. But then the next time he talks to her, she's like hunky-dory. And he's like telling her about maybe. And she's like, oh, I want to meet her. Let's Skype. Like, and it's all of a sudden you're like, okay, she's not the issue. Is it going to be the ex-fiance? Okay, no. Maybe told her off. The family told her off. The guy told her off. Okay, she's not the issue. Like, I feel like it's kind of like, okay, who's the guy that does all the American Horror Story shows?
Oh, Ryan Murphy.
Okay. Ryan Murphy's shows, it's like they set up all these potential storylines in like the first couple episodes. And then halfway through every season, they just pick and choose the ones they want to keep going with and then just shit on the rest. And that's what I felt like this was.
A lot of like he's got a gay brother, and I'm like, all right, cool. And they're engaged, and the family's totally fine with that.
Which I was like, cool. Okay, another cool element of the story, but didn't make a difference.
The fiance is a cop, and like everyone's a cop. Side character is a cop. Her dad is a cop. Her aunt is a cop.
Her sister was a cop.
Her sister was a cop. His future brother-in-law is a cop.
It's just so crazy. Like, and they say it. She's like, yeah, haha, I'm always surrounded by cops. So you're like, okay, so like, does she have like a troubled past? Like, was she like a bad kid and gotten, arrested and stuff? No.
And like when they have the showdown, to jump ahead a little bit, when the father shows up at her place and he's smoking a cigarette and he goes like, hey, stop smoking that marijuana.
That was weird.
And it was like, it's clearly tobacco. And I was so glad that she called him out on that, to be like, Dad, you've been a cop for decades.
You know what pot is.
Yeah. Also, it's legal here. Like, he just seemed to be... Like, it's one thing for him to be a bad person, but for him to also... Like, this just makes him seem straight up bad at his job.
Yeah.
Like, I would not trust him as...
Oh, yeah.
As a cop.
I have a lot to say about the parents in general. What did you like about the book, Jason?
Let's take a look.
Let's take a look through the Miss Maisel hot pink notebook, shall we?
I would like to say how fascinating I thought that this erotic romance novel opened with an extended dedication to the author's father.
You know what? And I marked it like it's this beautiful dedication, and she talks about how I write about family and create family a lot because I truly value it, and I value it because my dad was the best. And you're right, I usually don't read the dedication, and when I opened the book, it jumped to that, and I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Like,
it was a little jarring because I'm looking at the cover. I'm like, all right, these two hot people are about to get their fuck on.
Right.
She's like, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge my father. Not that he wasn't even my biological father, but that makes it even the more special that he was always there for me. And I was like, that's so touching. But it would be like if I was playing a gig and I was like, hey, thank you all for coming out. I got some friends and family in the audience. I'd like to dedicate this next song to my mother. And just did Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye. Like, some eyebrows would be raised.
But you know what? The more that I think about it, to me, it's less of a romance novel and more of a novel about families.
That has some extended graphic sex scenes.
Yeah, because it definitely has the setup of a romance novel. Boy and girl, yay, heteronormativity. But it's boy and girl, and they meet in the beginning. We see them fall for each other and everything. But I mean, there's the whole stuff about her family. There's the whole stuff about his family. There's the family that you choose as opposed to the family you come from, for both of them.
Yeah.
And, his brother and his husband, or husband-to-be, her and her sister creating a family.
Them both being raised more by, their aunts.
Yeah. It really is a book about family. And that's just my one thing is, I don't like going into a book and being like, this is going to be a romance novel. There's a hot guy and woman on the cover, making out. And then I read it and I'm like, it's not that it was bad. It's just that it wasn't what I was promised. This is not what I wanted.
I have yet to figure out what was Unraveled. This is Whisky Sharp.
Actually, that's a good point.
I don't know what was being unraveled. I thought it was a little goofy, but I did like that they really went out of their way to make it clear that he's a feminist.
Yeah.
That they were like, hey, there's no women working here at your barbershop. And it's like, well, Alexsei knew that wasn't, by design. In fact, he didn't like that aspect of all. He always respected strong women.
Yeah.
Feared them, even. But I did appreciate that. And, the aspects of inclusivity that were part of it. I was like,
I did too.
That's nice.
We had people from another culture, and they do celebrate Russian culture in this a lot.
I looked up to see if there's a particular thing about Russians in Seattle, the way that LA has a huge Armenian population, or
and was there?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not to say that there are not pockets, but it's not a thing.
Right.
Oh, the Seattle Russians.
Yeah, this is an area of town.
Miami Cubans or something it's just they just happen to.
I thought it was cool. I was like, okay, we're seeing a different culture. His brother's gay. She's definitely got a different look. She's got a nipple piercing. I was like, that's
Singular.
pretty baller. Just nipple. One. Yeah, I even wrote that down. I was like, just one? And then, the sister has a darker background. I also love, too, that her sister, what's her name? Rachel. I love that Rachel also, she was this badass, FBI cop or whatever. And then now, having left that field, she's a tattoo artist. And I was like, that's cool too.
I wish they would have told me more.
Why she's a tattoo artist?
No, not why she's a tattoo artist. More about, because they're like, yeah, we got you a special bed. And I don't think it ever really mentioned her having any difficulty getting around.
She's talking about how her sister had to go through all this physical therapy, and she had all these injuries and stuff. But you're right, we don't get a lot of details of why.
I mean, that could have been just held in a house. It could have been Buffalo Bill, Silence of the Lambs style, held in a pit. Yeah. They don't make it clear what she needs a special bed for.
Right. I feel like some of that might come out in her book, in Rachel's story.
So they're being withholding.
True love conquers all.
They could be withholding this information for some delayed gratification. I actually did write a note because it kept going back and forth between these boring passages of them catching up in between in the scenes where they're actually boning, and I was like, is this entire book just a metaphor for edging?
Okay, yeah. The second book is Rachel and Victor, and that's his brother, right? Cousin. His cousin. And they set that up in this one pretty easily, where they're like, oh, this guy is into her. Okay, so that makes sense. I want to see who the other one is.
Oh, the other one's about Cora.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And Bo? Who the hell's Bo? Bo Petty.
Fuck if I know who Bo Petty is.
I don't know who that is, but
let's see, what else did I like? I liked that they make it very clear that they are practicing safe sex. I want to set a good example, so he's always using a condom.
Yes.
And every single time mentions as such. Though they left out what I assume maybe the editor cut out, the extended passage in which they both go to their local Planned Parenthoods to make sure that they have a paper trail to prove that they are both clean before engaging in sexual activity. I think they should go, if you're going to mention the condom, you should go whole 9 yards, include the entire trip to the testing facility.
We went, we sat, we waited 10 minutes, we talked to this woman named Doris. Like, they gave us boysenberry flavored condoms. Like, makes my boyfriend's junk smell like pie.
I liked that he didn't care when she's sweaty. Like, it wasn't the kind of thing, like, he... Like,
after she's, drumming and shit.
She plays a punk rock, which she says, I'm good at punk rock.
Yeah. 80 times.
Said no punk ever. No punks. I'm really good at punk rock.
Doesn't that kind of it's like breaking the rules of Fight Club, like telling you about Fight Club?
Or they say, if you were at Woodstock, you don't, if you were at Woodstock, you don't remember it. So if you remember it, you weren't there, or something like that. I'm good at punk rock.
And she says that about everything. Like, it comes up a lot.
Hair,
I'm good at looking punk rock. I play punk rock. Like, you're just like, okay.
You know who's and being good at something is inherently not punk rock. The Sex Pistols, terrible band. Awful. Great punk rock band.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? They talk about, he goes to watch her, play with her, all girls punk rock band. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then they have this conversation about how, oh yeah, this is my life. So I thought it was going to, again, potential problem. I thought it was going to be oh, she doesn't really want to be a stylist. She wants to be in this band and do that. And she's not pursuing her dreams or whatever. But no, that wasn't it either.
No, but he did eat her out while she's punk rock stanky.
Yeah, I think that scene was pretty hot, actually. That was one of my favorite ones.
I played a show the other night, just me, solo acoustic on a stage. For half an hour. Wasn't playing drums, strumming guitar, playing my pop songs, and even after that I was like, I wouldn't kiss me.
Yeah.
I would not kiss me, let alone, get
do
myself
anything
naked,
else.
put my mouth anywhere.
Oh my god, that's too funny.
The rest of the scene was very good. I did appreciate that.
Yeah, I have to say, I do think that the sex scenes in general were pretty good. They definitely are more plentiful in the first half. But again, this all goes back to how the second half is a completely different book.
The sex scenes at times reminded me weirdly of Stephen King books.
Oh.
Because Stephen King puts in these graphic sex scenes in the middle of nothing, where he will also take time to process what's in their heads. He doesn't just say she sucked his cock, and then they did this, and then he got out the condom, and then they talked for 15 to 20 minutes. He will talk about their thought process. But just like this, seemingly, in the middle of something where, they have she throws her father out of her house, and then they have, some real good sex.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the Stephen King book, Christine, and there's a bit, it's the climax of the book where they're waiting for the killer
The what
car.
Part of the book? What part?
The climax.
Oh, okay.
Get up close to the mic. The climax of the book, where the lead guy and girl are waiting for the killer car to arrive back at the garage, and they're like, well, we've got about an hour to kill. Let's fuck.
We might as well do
so
something.
Then there's another 4 pages of them going at it, and then and it's not like the car arrives and kills one of them mid-coitus. It's then they clean themselves up, and then anyway, back to the plot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens in
it just kind of would happen, and you're why is this happening now?
But then in the second half of the book, I started to feel that way about they went to Bainbridge Island. And shout out to my friend that's from Bainbridge Island.
It's so pretty. I went and saw a movie on Bainbridge Island.
I've never been to Bainbridge Island. I have spent some time in Seattle.
It's really, and I love Seattle, so I'm all about it.
Lauren Dane put in an apology for inventing a Seattle landmark.
Yeah.
She's the Bootleggers building doesn't really exist. I took creative liberty, and I was like...
Did we need to know? I don't know. It was just kind of random.
First and foremost, a work of fiction, so...
Yeah. Like, is she from Seattle? And she's like, I'm so sorry to all my Seattle friends.
I'm kind of regretting not researching the author before getting into this. All I know is what she looks like.
I do wonder if, like, some of this... and I wonder this about most authors' books, but I wonder if this is in some way, like, based off of part of her life. Like, just because I know you mentioned that she kind of does look like... Maybe. Like, or at least cover version, maybe. And she has this dedication to her father and everything. And, you know, this is just so much about...
We know her values, and I'm guessing, you know, somebody like Alexsei is the ultimate for her.
Yeah.
I would say that maybe is like a manifestation of her id. That it's who she wants to be. Right. I don't think she's got a tattoo of hummingbirds. I don't.
Or the one nipple pierce.
Or I don't think she has.
And if
a nipple
you
pierce.
do, good for you, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if it's the kind of thing where you dressed up real fancy for the author photo, but then in every other facet of your life, this is like basically nonfiction, but the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
Like, good for you. It seems like this is like in another life who I would like to be, and these books are an expression of her own fantasies.
Yeah.
Which
I feel like that's got to be it for a lot of romance novelists. That would be why you do it, right?
The truest way. I mean, otherwise it's like because I am good at descriptive
orgasm.
Descriptive words and character development.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you want to write this stuff from the heart.
Right.
It's not a Hardy Boys mystery.
Oh God! Well, there's got to be
that. It's a
that.
Hard-On Boys mystery.
There's got to be that fan fiction though. It's got to be out there. But okay, so and I'm guessing, I don't know about the third book in the series, and I haven't read the second one yet. But I feel like I am gonna read the second one just because I want to see, since it's maybe an Alexsei in this one, and then it's Alexei's cousin Victor and maybe sister Rachel in the second one. I'm like wondering if maybe their family epic drama will be kind of like continued into the second one, just because it's so not wrapped up in this one.
It does seem like at this point maybe's got everything she needs.
And then it's going to be Rachel taking the reins from here.
Just shift the focus.
Yeah. Which is funny because you know that hockey book I was talking about earlier that we read on the podcast? It was a very similar setup in that it was like about 3 sisters, and each book follows one of the sisters, right? But it's like an ongoing story. But I felt like that in comparison with this was so different. Like, I felt like that one was handled really well, and it was a little jarring to get to the end of the first book and be like, wait, we don't know everything that happens yet? But like with this one, I just feel like there's so many open-ended things, and like the maybe Alexsei relationship it just like happened, and then like there was never anything after that. Like they just
their
were together.
Their entire relationship is just banter and sex.
Yeah.
Do they do normal person stuff? Even when they're like out, you know, spending the day doing touristy things, they keep saying like, "This is gonna get you so sexed up." Which I'm wondering then if English is Lauren Dane's second language. If Russian perhaps was her first.
Oh, maybe.
Because things like that, the word any hoodle is...
I'm sorry, what?
Any hoodle.
Any hoodle.
As in any hoodle.
Like any hoodle.
Yeah, that's in there minimum 3 times.
There is though, like with words like that, and I marked a couple passages. Like we said the one about... when's he gonna see your boobs already kind of thing, and then there was one like a couple pages later that was, that heifer isn't gone, she's like herpes rate, she keeps coming back. Like it definitely had like a really playful tone, so I'm like, I guess that's kind of like what she was going for, but it just wasn't consistent enough for me. Again, it all goes back to the damn family in the second half of this book that just, for me, ruins the book. Like, and it's funny because you were saying like, oh yeah, when I got to the second half, I was so invested in this family drama that I like, you know, would skip through the romance, and I was the opposite, was I wanted to read a romance. And so in the second half of the book, this stupid ass family keeps coming in with these ridiculous parents that, I'm sorry, are just like way over the top. Like
I wrote her, all caps, her name is Gladys. We are. I don't know how far into the podcast are we at this point. What are we, like 45 minutes
at this
an hour?
point.
Maybe is not her real name. Her name is Gladys. Her parents named her Gladys. Her sister gave her the nickname because people would ask, maybe they'd say like, "Is your name Gladys?" And she'd go, "Maybe." And then her sister just gave her the nickname. I could not figure out because her parents like, what are we gonna? I never named you Maybe, like some kind of hippie. How old are her parents? Like this book does not take place like in like the 70s where her parents would have like had her in the late 50s or like.
I wrote, how did she wind up with the name Gladys, and what the fuck is wrong with these parents?
It was a name that was good enough for your great-great-grandmother.
Yeah, and and her sister's name is Rachel? Like, how do those figure together?
I believe I have like a distant old relative whose name was Adolf.
Yeah.
We don't meet a lot of Adolfs anymore. It was good enough for him. It is no longer good enough for anybody.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised. I think there's currently in today's society going to be a struggle over whether or not the name Donald can stay because we've got Trump, but we also have Donald Glover.
Yeah.
And one of them will be able to claim the rights to being named Donald.
Yeah, you're right though. That will be an interesting one.
Like some kind of hippie. I'm like, so
some kind of hippie.
If Maybe's 27, I'm guessing Rachel's.
She's 30.
Rachel's
they do
30?
say she's 30.
Rachel's 30. So get her parents
like 55,
late
60?
50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
So that would put them, my parents were born in like the mid to late 50s.
Yeah.
So they would have absolutely been adolescents around the time of it. Like, of course, there will always be, like, straight-laced people. I mean...
that lived in a very different part of the country, apparently. Like, Well, didn't they say, though, that they were living in Southern California? That's, like, where they used to live.
West Covina, shout out to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah, West Covina.
But he was like, I have a cousin who is... or I guess he's retired now, was a cop. I would put him roughly at the age of Maybe and Rachel's father.
Okay.
This dude's rad. He's got like a sick jazz collection, like super...
Yeah.
Like you can't just say, because he's a cop of a certain age.
No, because there's so many fucking people in this book, too, that are cops. Like, you can't just be like, oh, it's because they're a cop. Like, and I'm like, well, that's not the case.
Or even because they're Republicans.
No. Yeah, that's definitely not the case.
Ted Nugent's a Republican. Like.
Yeah. No, these people are, like, I mean, I wrote on more than one occasion, what the fuck is wrong with these people? What the fuck? I'm getting really sick of this storyline. This family is insane. Like, it just...
Yeah, 2 points I wrote, I don't care about her family until suddenly I did.
Oh, yeah. See, and I didn't. I mean, it was just so much to the point, because I've read books, romance and non-romance, where... there's like the overprotective parent, or there's the really conservative parent, or there's the one where they always think that one child like can do no wrong and the other one, is just the fuck up. But it was like taking all of those, putting them together, and then amplifying it by 1,000. That I don't know. It just got to the point where, and you know what? Granted, there probably are people like this out in the world, and I'm just lucky enough not to know them. But it just was so outrageous the way that her father, maybe in Rachel's father, and the mother too, but she's not like really there. But the way that their father treats not only Maybe, but like the way that they treat Rachel, like who is like clearly their prized daughter because she was in the BAU and she was an FBI agent and all this, and just the way that he talks to all of them, it's like out of a bad play. Like, it just does not seem real.
They even say that he seems like a villain from like a gothic tragedy.
Yeah, it seems so fake that you're like, and the claims he's making of like, I'm going to sue you, and like, I'm going to sue for, what's it called?
Conservatorship. Conservatorship. Which
to basically be Rachel's guardian.
Tragically, I believe is what Britney Spears is still under.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brit.
Yeah.
But
all the love to you.
Yeah, that their parents are gonna like try and get guardianship of their 30-year-old daughter who has
they have a
nothing
really
wrong with
compelling case. Not the parents, like maybe in Rachel, like, if they're gonna fight it, like, I kind of want to see how this court battle goes.
And that's my thing, too.
Because they have, a really solid... It's not that... And if something had happened over the course of the book that actually would have jeopardized Rachel's... If she tripped and fell in a way that wasn't Maybe's fault, but had Rachel not been there with Maybe, could have been prevented. Or like, something like that. That would actually... Like, an actual... event that would give the parents cause to be like, that's it, that's the last straw.
I was like waiting for the dad to straight up like burn their house down and be like, see, this is what happens when you live with your sister. She like sets things on fire.
Yeah, it was...
It just was so surreal. Like, it just... I mean, and I know it's fiction, but and like that there are people out there like this with issues, but it was just so much to the point of like beyond... unbelievable where I was just like, I don't even want to read this.
She gets to the point where she tells Alexsei about how her father used to hit her.
Yeah.
And that's something that like took a while to come out. And I was like, I bet he did. And then she admits, and I was like, all right, cool. So there's definitely like a physical aspect to this. Mm-hmm. And then when the father is there and he's like, you have to tell Rachel. And she's like, I can't tell Rachel. And then the father comes in and it's like, all right, we got to talk. And then she, instead of talking, because I assumed Rachel didn't know that she got hit, instead tells this entire other, like, #MeToo story. Yeah. Which is also harrowing that, like...
It was just story after story.
And, like, doesn't mention that the father hit her. So then it almost... I mean, I certainly wouldn't want this... I wouldn't want to negate the importance of anything like this, but almost, in the scheme of things, seemed less bad. Yeah. It actually, like, the father was just pissed that, you know, the guy got found out, and, like, that situation seemed to be wrapped up. It wasn't something that the father still believed one way or the other. I was half thinking that it was going to be revealed that the father was responsible for some kind of sexual abuse.
Yeah, I did too. I totally thought that's where it was going.
Reclaiming her sexuality.
Yeah. But instead it ends up being that, like,
dad's bud.
You know, the dad's boss or, like, partner or something, like, tried to assault her, like, in the closet at their house.
And didn't even, like...
Nothing happened. Yeah. No, I mean, I for sure thought it was going to be that the father had done something, but... Yeah, I don't know. It was just so weird, and like that's the reason, because the father calls her a whore. He, you know, is like, she's dirty, she's scum, she's a prostitute. She, you know, I mean, she blames Alexsei, like, oh, he's smoking pot, he's a no good lowlife, doesn't have a job,
and I'm like, dealer.
Well, and all of this stuff, and then like everyone is telling him, like Rachel's telling him, Alexei's telling him, you know, okay, no, he has a job, she has a job, they're together. I'm happy, she's happy, everyone is good. Like, they own a house. Like, the two sisters together own a house. I'm like, I think they're doing okay. They both own a house, they're gainfully employed. Like, what? I just don't know what other proof do you need? Like, it's just so much, like, I mean, I don't like to use the word crazy. Like, I don't like that. Like, it's not, you know, politically correct. But this guy, I don't know how else to describe him. Like, he is just...
He's cartoonish.
Yes. It's so cartoonishly, like, such an awful person that you're like, this can't be real. In no world is this real. Like... I'm sure
maybe the mom would end up having a small sympathetic turn where she would be revealed to sort of like be helpless to the situation, that she's just kind of going along with it, but like she misses her baby girl.
Or the dad's just like straight up sociopathic and like but he doesn't, nothing changes with either of the parents. I mean, nothing really changes with a lot of them. Like, there's definitely more...
There's nothing that stands... I mean, overall, this is the most drama in the book, and it's nothing that is standing in the way of the romance, because really the drama is for somebody that doesn't give two shits about this girl anyway. Yeah. So if she's fucking this guy, like, whatever, I already hate her. It's not like, oh, you know, my daughter's too good for you or something. Yeah. The best way that this story could have been told was already told, and it was Laura Linney's plot in Love Actually.
Oh my God, you're right!
She's in love with like a foreign dude, but she has a sibling to take care of. If Rachel had been a lot less competent and ready to go.
Well, that would have made a lot more sense.
If she really did have to take care of her.
Yeah.
And so the drama came down to, like, even though Rachel's like, hey, you have my full support, go, I'll be fine. And then something happens to her. And then the parents can step in and be like, okay, so there's this and
I've read
this
that
situation that is then tearing this couple apart.
Yeah.
That, like
you have to choose between who you get, you know, and I've read that romance multiple times where sometimes it's that they're trying to keep or get custody of a child. Sometimes it's that it's like a sibling or someone that, you know, isn't... Their special needs, so that they need someone to be taking care of them and they're worried they're going to lose them, or if if Maybe was in like an unstable position, she didn't have a job, she couldn't find a job, you know, there were just so many factors that I'm like, okay, I could see where this could work in a book, but it doesn't work in this book. It was just too many things that just didn't go together.
I've often said that The Sound of Music is the most boring thing that could possibly involve nuns fighting Nazis.
Okay.
Like, you've got those two elements, and it's really not a huge part of it. And this is the least exciting book that could feature a stepfather that's in the Russian mob.
Oh God, I forgot.
An ex-FBI agent that was kidnapped. Multiple cops on both sides of the family. Really, all of those elements should have played into the plot so much more. And instead we're like, it's like, color this picture, but you only can use highlighters.
Yeah. It was just like she was looking to give them like these really rich, diverse backgrounds, and I'm like, okay, check.
But it's not diverse when like 3 of them
are cops. That's true too. I'm like, okay, but it's like, you know how people say that like if you want to win an Oscar, there's like the checklist of like what you need in your movie. Like it's a biopic, you know, or it's about a, you know, gay, trans, lesbian, bisexual character, you know, or a person of color, you know, there's like,
or it's about the process of making a movie in Hollywood.
I know, yanking their own dicks. But
not a scene in this book, though.
Yeah, no. But this one, it was kind of like you had the checklist of like, okay, how diverse can we make this book? Okay, well, we have a gay character. Okay, there was a kidnapping. There's a mob. There's somebody from a different culture. There's piercings. There's barbers. Like, there's so much. And I'm like...
Yeah, they're around a lot of sharp objects. Never come into play.
No ropes. No blades. But yeah, like, I for sure am with you. I thought, like, something... Like, even if it turned into, like, a thriller, like a romance thriller, I would have been cool with that. Like, if somebody came at them, like, the dad is, like, trying to sue them. I'm like, all right. But, like, if somebody was, like, really threatening them and, like, they had to defend themselves or something. But, yeah, you're right. It sets up all these players that could be good.
If David Fincher took a pass at this book, because, like, The Social Network is, like, it's a thriller, but it's like... Mostly just about a loss. Like, the most exciting part is when somebody goes, lawyer up, asshole. And that's kind of what happens in here.
Yeah.
But it's just like, all right, he called to warn that there may be some legal action being taken.
There could be. This might happen.
He didn't call the cops with false abuse claims or anything like that. He was like, we're going through the proper legal channels.
How exciting. I mean, it's like you set up all this stuff. That's my problem, is I felt like the first half was set up like, what's my guy, American Horror Story.
Ryan Murphy, yeah.
It's set up like a Ryan Murphy plot where you've got all these cool people, all these cool stories, and then more than half of them go out the window. Like, they just... And so that's why I keep thinking, okay, maybe I need to read the next book and it's going to be like a continuation. But, I mean, part of me is like, I don't want to read the next book. Like, and you know what? I've read Lauren Dane before too, and I really have enjoyed her stuff. And this is by far not the worst book I've ever read. Like, not anywhere close to it. It's just, it's one of those ones where like you see the movie or you read the plot and you're like, oh, this is going to be really cool. And then you read it or watch it, and at the end you're like, like there's so much more you could have done with this. Or if I had made it, I would have done it this way.
Not, I'm not leaving this like, this was bad. I'm leaving this like, I have notes.
Yeah, like it just could have been so much more. Like
I will say, if you decide to have me back, it must be for the sequel.
For the next one?
I will put myself through that. There was a point like I kept like switching between being like, this is goofy, and like most of my notes like were about the first half. Like for the second half, my notes are just like,
yeah,
they argued over Hamilton because it's a timely book.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there were definitely a lot of like on point references.
They
and
listened
stuff.
to Alabama Shakes.
Yep.
They mentioned the band Interpol.
Yeah.
They use FaceTime.
Yeah.
Shout out to my compadre. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, no, there were definitely like, and that's this thing is I really did like the tone of like how the sisters talked to each other and said like funny, quirky things.
It did seem like they were related. Like all the familiar relations, like they felt
back to family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like she can write family really well. Jury's still out on how she writes fathers, but
it's weird because it's like, you know how we were talking about there's like paranormal romance, there's cowboy romance, there's what was the other one? Oh, hockey romance. I wonder if like people think of a genre as like familial romance,
broken family romance.
Yeah, like because that's really what it is to me. Is it's less about her and Alexsei and more about her maybe building this new family and like kind of letting go of the old family. I'm
gonna say within the second or third book, assuming these characters all remain in the same orbit, Mavy's gonna end up pregnant.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me.
And they're going to have some, like, badass...
the next family. Oh,
they're
that's
cute. They're going to have some badass pregnant sex.
Well, but that's the thing is, like, even if we're in the same universe in the next two books, they're not going to, like, focus on Mavy and Alexsei anymore, probably.
Which is fine, because...
Because you're done.
Yeah, no, their sex... It got to... Like, I skimmed the final sex scene.
Like, they were cute, and...
in fact, the author skimmed the final sex scene. The final line. Laughing, he took her down to the mattress and led her astray with all his villainous sex moves. Sometimes she...
The end.
Sometimes she just, like, it ended, I'm thinking, like, there must be one more chapter that ties up, and then it just had the acknowledgments. I made note of at least one point in which she goes from being, like, very descriptive to not at all. Like, she says the words, his mouth did some stuff.
Ooh, some stuff, huh?
And they're not hooking up yet. Like, he laughed, though. A big booming laugh that made her want to rub all over him. Oh, Zaika, you must be biting your tongue so hard not to comment more. His mouth did some stuff. And she might have gone away for a few long minutes as she struggled not to lean in and lick it. So they're just sitting there talking. What stuff? Lauren Dane, tell me.
What stuff?
Write in. Call in.
Wait, this wasn't a sex thing? This was just like him...
This
like
is...
she's like not listening to what he's saying, so he's like talking?
They're talking about how his brother would be treated as a gay person in Ukraine.
Okay.
And then he's talking about the organized crime aspect. And so this is page 69. Nice.
Perfect.
Where, it's... And I don't believe they start hooking up until page... 77 or so.
Okay.
So they're real close to hooking up, but they're still just talking. And he just says his mouth did some stuff. So please, Lauren Dane, call into the show right now and let us know what stuff his mouth. What that mouth do, Lauren Dane?
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about hooking up, did you have a specific hookup scene you wanted to read an excerpt from?
Oh, I didn't even know that was an option.
Ooh, yeah. I have a couple. And this is for me. I'm all about judging the sex scenes in these books, and I feel like usually that's where a lot of them excel. My problem is I feel like dialogue during sex scenes usually gets a little like, ugh.
Especially when he speaks
broken English. Yeah. So here we go. This is, I want to say the first time they have sex. It might be after that, but I like it specifically because of his dialogue, although I do think that the writing is pretty good. Mavy rolled her hips and wrapped her thighs around his waist. So good. You're killing me bit by bit, he said, as he began to thrust slow and deep. Her fingers slid over the taut, sweat-slicked skin of his forearms. He was so firm, so present and focused on her. His expression had gone nearly feral, and she wanted to tug that last bit of restraint free, maybe tightened her inner muscles, delighting in the way he sucked in a breath and exhaled on a curse. I like this position with you. I can look my fill at your tits as I make them bounce. He grinned like a pirate when she moaned. So deep, she whispered as he continued to fuck her. I'm driven to be as far into you as I can be. You're so wet and hot, I never want to leave. Alexsei underlined that when he kept his pace even as he palmed her nipples. Maybe like to come. Who didn't?
I underlined that line too.
Maybe like to come.
I was reading this out loud to my roommates last night. Maybe like to come. Who didn't?
I know. I thought that one was funny. I have to say too, this is not about sex scenes, but this is like the 4th or 5th book I've chosen where it takes place at Thanksgiving. And I did not plan that at all. Like, I don't know if there's like some unspoken thing in the world of romance where they're like, you know what? Thanksgiving's the forgotten holiday in media, so we're going to represent it in books, but we're definitely representing it on this podcast.
Big time. This is the Thanksgiving podcast. The listeners can't see. We do have a plate of yams on the table.
Yeah, and they're
some
good.
Yams, some mashed potatoes and gravy. My Aunt Lori sent in her special pretzel jello.
Oh, that was so sweet. Be sure to thank her for me. Okay. Did you have one?
Well, let me see if I can find...
I
did make a note that the... I wrote... Balls, never not funny.
Just the word?
Nothing takes me out of the sex scene faster than the word balls.
It usually comes when... It's usually when, like, she's going down on him or something. Not even in this book, just in any book in general. Where it'll be like, oh, yeah, da-da-da-da. She cradled his balls. Like
and there's not a better, more sexy word. You can't say globules.
I mean, there's so many words.
She lightly stroked his testicles. Like, it does.
Yeah, that's testicles will pop up. But it's like, you see, there's so many words for dick and pussy that you're like, you would think there would be something more fun for balls. Like, balls. That's all.
Balls.
I think I saved the scene where he goes down on her, like, right after she was drumming and stuff, and she's, like, all sweaty.
Oh, yeah, I can read that.
Okay, here, you want to read it? You don't have to read the whole thing. The second half is what's so great, though, because then the dialogue that caps it off at the end is genius.
I will say the timing of this is perfect, because I've had, like, 3 people recently be like, you ever do any voiceover work?
Well, here you go. You can add it to your demo.
All right. Yeah, this is for the demo reel. This is to audition for Matt Groening and the producers of The Simpsons.
Perfect.
He shoved her shorts and panties down, exposing her pussy to him. The sounds she made in the back of her throat had gone thready and husky. That pushed at him as relentlessly as the scent of her skin and the taste of her. He wanted more. Wanted to give her what she'd demanded. Fortunately, what she demanded was precisely what he'd been aching to do all night. With a palm against her hip, he pushed her back to lean against the wall behind her to keep her balance. Then he put one of her legs up on his shoulder and leaned in to take a lick. Her taste, holy shit, so raw, so good, all her. He spread her wide with his thumbs as he went back again and again, kissing, nibbling, sucking, and teasing her clit. She shuddered and murmured something about sweat again, and he sighed, looking up the line of her body into her face. I love the taste of your sweat. And your pussy. We can shower. Afterward, I'll eat you again later if the mood strikes.
That's my favorite part. I'll eat you again later if the mood strikes.
I will say my Russian accent right now is bordering into Strong Bad from Homestar Runner.
That's okay. It's okay. I like that you added a little bit of foreign flavor.
Well, if you just say that in like an American accent, you're like, why you talk weird?
Afterward, I'll eat you again later.
Afterward, I'll eat you again later. Like, get out of here, you creep.
Oh, God.
Fucking weirdo.
I have to say, the language barrier wasn't as much of a thing as I thought it would be.
She says early on, like, it's cute that your accent comes out more when you're angry. Which means that for most of the time, he's got only, like, a very slight accent.
Because he's still so calm.
He's 30. He's been in the U.S. since he was 16.
Yeah. So, of course, his English is good. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
It definitely, it's like, as the book becomes more dramatic, I feel like his accent gets thicker.
Which is weird, because this is all on the printed page. But it's like, by the end, I'm like, oh, he's like basically a bear in a furry hat. Starts off like having Russian blood and a Russian name, and by the end, he's like, I work for the Kremlin. The word balls only appears twice. I just searched the text on the iPad.
And you searched for balls?
I searched the word balls.
Good.
It comes up technically 3 times, but one of them is just in the context of a huge bowl of meatballs.
Oh, so that doesn't count.
Honestly, more erotic than some other things in this book.
Yeah.
Just like, huge bowl.
Huge bowl of meatballs.
I could really go for an IKEA trip right now.
Good old IKEA.
Wrap my mouth around some Swedish meatballs.
Some Monday meatballs. Hashtag Monday meatballs, Tumblr.
Monday meatballs. Topless Tuesday.
I used to work in a hair salon, and I feel like it's pretty common now if it's like an upscale salon, where we would offer people beer, wine, agua fresca, like, you know, and like the beer would be in a bottle and the wine would be a glass of wine. But I also, where I went to college, there was a place called Clips and Brew, and it was beer on tap, you know, that they pour by the glass while you get your hair cut. And I don't know. I mean, it's never something I noticed.
I think I would have liked this book a lot more if, instead of it being called Whisky Sharp, it was a place called Clits and Brew.
Clits and Brew.
Because then every time I got boring, but then they mentioned that they went back to Clits and Brew, I would have been like, yes!
Maybe it's like Clits and Blue Balls. Not as catchy.
He never really gets blue balls.
It could be Clits in Blue, and it's like a girl cop bar.
Because lots of cops.
Clits in Blue.
I did appreciate that there were 2 instances in which it said he couldn't stand up without revealing to the world that he had a boner.
His erection, yeah. It's true.
Like, so for all the control that you exercise over everything, you don't have power over your own body.
That's like a big thing in these books too, is he's like, oh, she walked in the room, I got hard. And you're like, oh, so easy.
When you're 16.
I know, I'm like 30-year-old man. Okay, any other last minute thoughts about it? I will say I liked what I'm going to call like the core 4 people, which was Alexsei, maybe Rachel, and Victor.
Yeah.
Like, I liked them enough to the point where I would read the romance between Victor and Rachel.
Were you also imagining Victor Crumb?
No, but now that you've said it, I'm going to.
Technically Bulgarian.
Yeah, but I mean, God, now it's going to be in my
Victor
head.
Victor come. Hey.
No! Over at Clits and Brew.
Over at Clits and Brew. Come meet Quidditch star Victor Cum.
I really did like his family. Like Alexei's, like, I liked the setup of his family. I feel like if they had just had one of their families in the book, it wouldn't have been a problem, but because it's both of them.
And then maybe we gotta piece together what her family life is. But like, no, very quickly, they're like, come to Thanksgiving.
And it's also like, when I read these books and the main characters have like almost exactly the same issue to get over, that always kind of bothers me. Like, it's okay if it's like both family issues, I guess, you know, and his wasn't as prevalent as hers, obviously, but like, I've read multiple books in the last few months where it's been like, they both have an overbearing father, and I'm just like, really? We couldn't think of anything else? Like, they had to both get over the exact same problem? Like, because you're supposed to like teach the other person and help them to grow and learn something.
Have
like, that's
complementary issues.
Yeah, or like somebody has a work issue or somebody has a romance, you know, it was
everybody
too
in
much.
This book was also like not everybody, but the 2 leads were like super well adjusted.
Oh yeah.
And like, she goes out of her way several times when Rachel's like, I'm so sorry that our parents treat you like shit. She's like, honestly, at this point, it's a minor annoyance. I went without them for many, many years. And now it's just something that I put up with. But like, it doesn't really get to me. And it doesn't.
I thought she would be much more damaged. And like, that would be her hurdle to get over, is like, you know, maybe mending the relationship with her sister. Because like, they were raised by different people, like once they were in their teens, but there's nothing really there. And then, you know,
or that like his controlling, because I thought really from the description he was going to be a lot more controlling, but that's not something she goes for. But really, it's just like a healthy, like, she's turned on by his confidence and his like want for control, but also his respect for her, that if she pushes back, he's like, cool.
Yeah.
And so I really thought that there was going to be a lot more of like an issue there, or that she would be like, stop trying to change me.
Right.
Or, you know, be like, oh, you're such a Virgo. Shout out to all my fellow Virgos.
Okay, Virgo. Well, let's wrap this bitch up. Let's give this book a couple grades, okay? I'm not going to ask you to give the overall book a grade. I'm going to have you break it down a little bit. So out of 10, 10 being the very best, 1 being absolute drivel, what would you give this book in terms of story? And then we're also going to do syntax and sexcapades.
Story is tough. I'd have to give it 2 different ratings
because
there are 2 different stories going. The story of Alexsei and maybe, I would give like a 7, because there's a point where I'm like, I'm engaged in this, and then it just kind of becomes fine.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. The story of the family, I'm gonna give like an 11.
Oh my god, because you really did like it.
Well, the thing is, only by the end though. Like, I was genuinely like talking to my roommates and my coworkers today. I'm like, yeah, I've been reading this book, and I was up to like 12:30 last night reading and finishing the rest today, and it kept switching between like, this is a slog, and this is goofy and fun, like, you know, having fun taking notes, like, wow, this is bonkers what's going on, and then just being like, oh, like, so like 6 pages of them helping out at a festival,
funny.
Just helping serve food. What the fuck is going on?
But I mean, if you took an 11 and a 7 and averaged them together, that means you're giving like the overall story like a 9? Because I don't, for me,
I would trim a lot. There are some very strong point. Like, I was shocked when it ended, because I was like, the last 3 chapters, I was very engrossed, and that's what I was reading today. Mm-hmm. You know, but before my work shift, people were like, "What are you reading?" I was like, "It's smut. Don't worry about it." but flipping through it and just being like, "Wow, okay, so the father's saying like these really shitty things, but wow, okay, good, they're standing up for themselves. Yeah. This is great." Mm-hmm. And like, she's having really like what seems like cathartic sex.
Yeah, and that's like, a good way to look at it. I like that.
And not to brag.
Yeah.
I've had cathartic sex. It's awesome. And
Good.
It was like, this is something that's related. It's not just like, hey, I get to read about these 2 hot people fucking. I'm like, this is actually something that I can come from a place of like relatability.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool.
That's nice.
This is cool. And then it was over, and I was like, oh. So there were definitely points where I was like, I am fully invested, and other parts where I was like, so they're just like serving up bread, and the ex-girlfriend's being a bitch, and that gets resolved so cleanly when the ex-girlfriend is just like, I know I am kind of a bitch, and maybe's like, yeah, but so am I, so don't go near him or I will cut you. And they're like, haha, okay. And
she's like, I'll throw a knife at you next time.
Yeah, and butter your own fucking bread, you whore.
God.
And then the ex-fiance ends up like helping out and like looking out for her, and I was like, so... not a problem at all.
I think you gave both versions of this novel a better grade than I would.
But I almost feel like I talked myself into a higher grade.
It's hard, because it's like, for me, I can't give it a big grade on story, because it starts off as one story, and then that story pitters out for me. So I'm just like, it's gone.
I will say, there were large stretches of this book that I did not enjoy.
Yeah, same. And for me, it was also the romance, and it was the family. But for me, it was mostly the family. But by the time I got to that, I'm like, well, I've already gotten this far. I have to finish. Yeah. So for story,
sex like that is never good either. I've gotten this far. I have to finish.
I have to finish.
Even if there's no resolution.
I'm going to give it, for story, I'm going to give it a 5. And it's not a terrible book. I don't even think it's a bad book. Like, I'm not sad that we read it. It's just one of those things where I know it could have been better.
Do you watch The Good Place?
I do. Well, I watched season 1.
Season 1. I think it's a season 2 thing where the character of Jason Mendoza mentions that he has a scale, and on a scale of 1 to 13... Tamani is an 8, but 8 is the highest. And then it goes up to 8 and then goes back down again.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, I like that.
He didn't say it as such, but I would assume past 8 means you're being kind of extra.
Okay, which makes sense.
So, like, on a scale of 1 to 13, 8 being the highest, I would give this a 10 because parts of this are so extra.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I like that scale. Okay, I can get on board with that. How about syntax, the writing itself?
Ooh. There were what I thought were legitimately a couple of typos. Like, it seemed like there was a word missing, and it didn't seem like because the narration was going for a more casual bend. Because sometimes it would do that. It would be like, yes, that.
There were times where I was thinking, and I think we both mentioned this, where I was like thinking, I wonder if English is Lauren Dane's first language because, or like it was like too caught up in the Alexsei character where it's like, I feel like we did lose some understanding
and
sometimes.
Not in a way that it seemed to be his inner thoughts.
No.
Or anything like that she was going for that kind of vibe. And because it wasn't then like... Because if that was the case, then the bits that were coming from, like, Maybe's perspective would have been, like, a lot more verbose.
Right. I really did enjoy her tone, though. At least, again, for the first half of the book. Like, I really did enjoy the tone. There was a lot of fun banter between the characters. It's better than the story itself.
Yeah, like, it wasn't that the writing wasn't engaging.
No.
I've read better books with less engaging syntax.
Yeah. I think it's better than the stories, and I give the story a 5 out of 10, so I think I'd give it...
I'll make a bold claim. I was more engaged in this than I was Catcher in the Rye.
We've also mentioned Catcher in the Rye on this show before. Syntax, I'll give her like a... I don't know if it's at a 7, but it's like not a 6. So I'm going to give her like 6.5... maybe 7 on a good day.
It does appear that she lives in Seattle, doesn't say anything about her background.
I'm pretty sure she's American, but...
Yeah, the story goes like this. While on pregnancy bed rest, Lauren Dane had plenty of downtime, so her husband took her comments about giving that writing thing a serious go to heart and brought home a second-hand laptop. She wrote her first book on it before it gave up the ghost. Even better, she sold that book and never looked back. Today, Lauren is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of over 60 novels and novellas across several genres. I would be curious to read something that she wrote that was not... So that's the sci-fi view. So, I mean, across multiple genres...
Of romance.
Of romance.
Subgenres, yeah.
Multiple genres of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just romance. This is not...
I wouldn't call this erotic romance.
This is not erotic romance.
No.
And I was... Now, the next thing we're rating is the sexiness of it, the sexability.
Yeah, sexcapades.
The sexcapades.
Sexability. I like that.
Would you
sexability.
Would you or would you not fuck this book?
Yeah, there you go.
Early on, I was like, all right, this is like animalistic. This is dirty. They're digging their nails into each other.
Yeah,
this
in the
is
first
like,
half.
It's passionate. That's great. And by the end, it's like, she's like, we've never had missionary position. And I was like, well, you're not going to do it in that squeaky bed in her aunt's house, but don't knock missionary position.
Yeah.
So I would be curious to read what she would consider to be an erotic romance.
Usually for me, what constitutes the difference between erotic romance, and a romance is like the amount of sex, but also like the level of intensity of sex. So
the sex is fairly intense throughout, but because of
it's not like nobody's tying anybody up. Nobody's I
think part of that is just due to the lack of drama in their own lives. It's like it's just always great sex, and that even made me bored.
Well, that's every romance. It's always good sex. Like, it's very rare to find romance where not everyone is orgasming on the spot.
Yeah, and it's always timed perfectly. Yeah. That they always come together.
For me, I find the foreplay in romance usually sexier than the sex itself. Like the amount of time and the words and the adjectives that they put into the foreplay.
Because that's a lot more of they're having a good time. They get it's a chess game. They get to tease each other.
Ooh, chess game.
Except for the first one where they're like, yeah, well, my pants are off. Yeah, so why did you leave Russia?
There was a weird combination of talking too.
I need you to touch me. Will you talk to your sister?
Tell me about your brother.
Does your sister know about your father?
You still haven't graded the syntax.
Oh, I did not grade the syntax. I'm going to give the syntax... It was engaging, but I really think needed like another pass by...
Yeah.
Again, I will say all-star editor, because she has to read all 17 books that Lauren Dane puts out a year.
In a month.
I don't think she has any other clients. I mean, it's not a difficult read. I would put the syntax at like a 7.
Okay, that's fine. We're on the same page.
Sexcapades, I'd also say a 7.
I would too.
Because there wasn't that much variety.
And that's my thing is like, I thought what was there was really good, but I feel like there wasn't enough. And it, again, pittered out, like as we went through. And it was very just kind of the same over and over again. Like, it was good the first couple times. Then you're like, okay. Like when you went down on her, when she was like sweaty after drumming, I was like, okay, this is good, you know? And then... After that, I was like, okay.
It was good the first couple times, and then it got boring, so we stopped seeing each other.
Story of my life. Okay, cool. So, I mean, it's so funny because I feel like this always happens where we, like, are so hard on the books, but then by the end, we're like, yeah, I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a 6. I'd give it a 7. Like, I wouldn't...
I feel better about myself as a person.
So, overall, would you read another romance after having had this experience?
I would for sure read another Lauren Dane. After having spent 2 hours shitting on this book, I am curious to read the next one in the series.
I am too. I think we should. Really think we should do it.
Yeah, like we'll have to reconvene for.
Lauren, you got us enough. You got us in enough to read.
I don't know if I would just on my own accord,
sure,
just pick up a romance novel. Mm-hmm. But for something like this, like absolutely. It was not a bad time, as much as every so often it felt like homework.
Yeah.
I'm like sitting there with my little notebook being like, shit, the deadline's coming up. You know, I would, and I mean, would you recommend this book?
It's hard because this would not be the book that I would recommend to a first-time romance reader. Right. I would not say to somebody who's never read one, like, this is the one you should start with. Like, there are books where I can think of where I'd be like, oh, that's like a great, you know, gateway romance.
I mean, would you say this is even like a good, bad book that you could say like, hey, like this isn't what's going to get you into romance novels, but like...
I don't even think it's
this
like...
This is goofy.
I don't even think it's so ridiculous enough. Like, there's some that you read where it's like, you know, it's there on the cover and in the title that you're like, oh, I know this is going to be like a good, bad book. Like, it's just going to be ridiculous. Like, this was just like not really one or the other. Right. It kind of was... For me, again, I don't think of it as a romance. I keep thinking of it as like this family drama.
Weirdly, there were a couple points in which I thought, oh, this isn't erotica. This is straight romance.
Yeah.
They're really just like, he's such a good listener.
Yeah.
They're really attracted to each other. Wow, this must be what love feels like.
Which
and I'm
isn't
like, so
bad.
Yeah, the whole point is romance novels.
Yeah.
It's not just like read erotica.
And see, and that's not bad. Like if that's what you like you don't want something super hot.
But I did have to sort of remind myself, like, this is the genre, because that's so not what I'm using. Even romantic books that I've read, admittedly mostly like, you know, teens in
romance. They have
like
romance
John Green books or something.
In it.
Couples will fall in love, but you know it does seem more realistic that they have to get over their own anxieties and hang-ups and hurdles. So for this to be like that clean. Yeah,
it felt more like I was reading like a familial drama that I would have like picked off the fiction shelf as opposed to like a romance novel.
It would have been like, wow, there's a lot of graphic sex scenes in this family drama.
I know, but that's the other problem though, is I'm like, the first half of the book is the romance novel setup. You know, it's just so there's...
And it could have been
balanced,
two different books. Like the movie Hereditary, you could say like, wow, there's a lot of like ghosts and shit in this family drama. and it's a great movie, but like it is, you know, even without whatever supernatural elements,
call it what it is.
Yeah, it's a family drama, and that's really what this book is.
Yeah, and again, it's not a bad thing. It's just it's not what I signed up for. Like, that being said, I am all in to read the next one, but I'm gonna be pissed, Lauren, if I don't get some answers about this crazy family in the next book.
Can we get her on the show?
We'll see. Last little bit that I'll play with you. I like to add like a little like fun bit at the end, just to cleanse our palate. So I was like thinking about this when I was like, okay, well, what kind of theme question do I want to ask Jason that's like kind of ties in with books? So I was like, okay, They work at Whisky Sharp, and I mean, that's a whole setup for this whole series. That's a bar and barbershop. What if you opened a business that was a combination of something and a bar? What would it be?
I mean, because so many of the things that seem like they would be fun to combine with a bar already exist. Like, oh, Chuck E. Cheese, but they have a bar. Well, that's Dave and Buster's.
Yeah. Mine's almost like my silly, ridiculous one is I think it'd be cool. And I'm sure, again, it probably does exist. Is like, I would have like a bounce house bar.
Oh,
like, we're just like the entire building is a bounce house, but like inside the bounce house at one corner is a bar.
Oh, that's gonna go south so fast.
I was like, it's gonna be so.
God.
But can you just imagine like it for like ravers or like club nights? Like it would just be so gross and sweaty and dirty. Like
I mean, I'm nauseous just thinking about. If I walk too fast after having too heavy a beer, I'm like, oh, this is a mistake.
Well,
let alone being forced.
And you're going to have to leave your shoes at the door. So nobody's wearing shoes in this house.
What would be improved? I mean, now we have movie theaters with bars.
Yeah.
Ooh, if just alcohol could be served openly at, like, museums. Like a lot of, not just like, oh, there's a cafe that has beer and wine.
Like you could walk around with a drink.
Like if I can get shellacked and go to the planetarium.
Which would be it would either be the planetarium or the aquarium that you would like have to go to, right? To like get bombed. That would be like the best.
Or, I mean, with recreational marijuana being a thing in LA to, like, just get super baked and, like, go hang out with some fish and, just watch jellyfish super high?
You would, you wouldn't be able to move.
When I was last in Seattle, where this book takes place, I went to a recreational dispensary and I walked in and they said, hey, what can I help you find? I said, I've never purchased weed before. I don't know what I'm doing. They said, well, you know, what are you into? What are your plans? I said, nothing too intense, but I want to go to Laser Floyd.
Yeah.
And they they hooked me up. They got me what I needed, and then I accidentally left it at the house. And ended up seeing Laser Beetles, and it was very disappointing.
Oh.
But
man.
if I could like relive that with, you know, I've had a couple glasses of whiskey on the rocks.
Yeah. Whisky Sharp.
Just kind of lay back there, watch the colors, or watch a planetarium show. Hang out with just some dioramas of woolly mammoths.
Yeah.
I'd open like a natural history museum.
Yeah. Man, would that be an Instagram picture? Oof. I like that.
Yeah, Exploratorium has their evenings with alcohol. Like that should just be a thing everywhere.
It should be. On that note, and with like the children clamoring outside like my apartment window.
Sitting on your patio furniture, no less.
Oh God, so rude. Let's wrap this puppy up.
Let's wrap it up.
But thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, this has been an absolute blast. And it's not a book I would have read on my own, but I'm glad that I read it for this purpose because I read it and said, I have to talk to somebody about this immediately. And
that's what I want. And, you know, if it's got you wanting to potentially read the next one.
Misery loves company.
Perfect. So, Lauren Dane, look out because we're coming for you and Rachel and Victor on another episode.
Victor come.
Victor come.